Hello, everyone. Karen with Prophecy Watchers here for another conference update. As you all may have heard by now, we are all meeting in Orlando, Florida at the end of the month, March 27th through the 29th, for a wonderful conference on all things Bible prophecy. And I'm meeting today with one of our own, Josh Peck, who has quite the topic that we're going to be speaking on here. But I also, before I introduce him, I wanted to make you all aware that he actually also has a TV program on CERN right now, and it's just blowing up online. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that and let you know that you could go and get like an entire program of information. But before I go further on that, Josh Peck, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure talking with you, and I'm excited about today's conversation.
Absolutely. So let's just jump in since I mentioned the CERN TV program. Tell us what that's all about.
Yeah, definitely. And I was so encouraged to see how many people are interested in this topic. That's always great to see, especially with something that on the surface seems really complicated, but when you really dig into it, it's not so much. So basically the program, and I don't want to give the whole thing away because I want people to go watch it on the Prophecy Watchers YouTube channel. And also it's on television as well. But basically, it's looking at CERN, the history of CERN, and the really dark occultic roots, the historic roots behind CERN. A lot of people, when they hear the word CERN, they think, well, it's got something to do with science, I think, something about particle collisions maybe. And then you go online and you see all of these conspiracy theories, and it's really difficult to tell which ones are true and which ones aren't. Surprisingly, some of them actually are true. So in that program, Gary Stearman and I go through the history of CERN, all the dark occultic things that seem to be attached to it, and really break down what CERN is, what they're doing, and what those dark historical roots are. So yes, I highly suggest people go check out that program on the Prophecy Watchers YouTube channel.
Yes, if you do, I promise you will learn something that you did not know about before. He's just a wealth of information, and that is a really incredible program. And now to transition to the two messages that you're going to be presenting in Orlando. The first one, the Israel and UFO prophetic connection. What's that all about?
Man, so this was one of the most exciting things, and I should mention too that the information from the CERN program and the information from both of my presentations, including the one that you just mentioned that I'll get to in a moment, come from my new 2-volume book set called The Final Cataclysm, just released. It's brand new. It's 2 volumes. So if you get it, make sure you get both volumes. So that is available now. And that's where all this information comes from. But basically, there is this very strange connection between major events in let's say UFO history, or really the idea of cosmic plurality, the idea that there might be life on other worlds. Major historical events in that realm going back thousands of years correlates with major events in Israel going back thousands of years. And isn't that strange? And
interesting.
Yeah, it is. And so in the presentation, I go through a lot of these examples, and I kind of get at why this is the case and why we should care. Well, one of the main things that we should care is the whole ancient astronaut theory thing. You know, programs like Ancient Aliens are so popular now, especially amongst younger people. And they think that there are aliens out there and that they created life on Earth. Well, if that were the case, and if we can show that these events correlate with major events in Israel history, well, that blows it out of the water. Why would some alien race come to Earth and then correlate all of their events to this random little country in the Middle East? Would we do that? If we discovered life on Mars or life on some other planet, would we go there, pick one random little country, and then correlate all of our events, all of our sightings to these alien people based on what's happening in that country? No, of course not. That would be insane. But if the Bible is real, and if the spiritual world is real, and if these UFO sightings are not aliens from another planet, but are actually demonic, yet still have physicality to them, but are demonic or fallen angel activity, well, then it makes perfect sense, because Israel is God's chosen people. We should expect demonic activity to increase when events in Israel increase. We saw that all over throughout Jesus' earthly ministry. There's demons all over the place, basically. He's casting out demons everywhere. So I think that that's really important to establish this connection. And it's really strange, but just even in an evangelistic way, to show people like, hey, these aren't aliens. There's something else going on here. Because sometimes the events that the UFOs will do, let's say a UFO crash, will predate by a few months something that happens in Israel. Now, nothing can do that unless it's outside of our physical understanding of reality and time and all of that. To be able to do something before something else happens, like how would they know that? We wouldn't know that if we discovered life on another planet. So I think that that's really important, and it just goes to show these things are demonic. These things are not life from some other planet. So I think people are really going to have their eyes open and have their minds blown with what I have to show people in that presentation.
Yeah, and I would imagine that it even more highlights the fact that Israel has not been abandoned, that Israel still is the center of God's plan, because if there are these, moves by the enemy, I kind of think of them as like counterattacks, trying to distract from what God's doing and take away from what God is trying to bring about. And the enemy's like, oh, let me distract, let me counterattack, let me try to thwart this. And yet the fact that it is all centered around Israel, and yet Israel has been replaced by Christians. Like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. So it's even more of like a solidarity with Israel and being able to support that. No, Israel has not been cast aside. He is still making Israel the center of his plan. The Lord is, and I think that is just an even bigger thing, because how many Christians still don't believe that Israel is still the center of God's plan?
Yeah, very much so. And if God did not care about Israel, neither would the enemy. They would be wasting their time. Our spiritual enemy would be, they know their time is limited. They know their time is short. They're not going to waste their time on fruitless efforts like that. I mean, obviously everything they do is fruitless ultimately, but in their own minds and in the mind of the enemy, they're not going to base anything on Israel if God doesn't care about Israel. If God only focused on the church and did not have some kind of future plan for Israel or some kind of current interest in Israel, then the enemy wouldn't focus on that at all. Yet we still see more and more as time goes on, these so-called coincidences, these correlations of events keep happening more and more frequent. So it's a really interesting time to be alive and see these things come to fruition.
Well, it's so cool that those that are aware, that they have their eyes opened, that we're able to see it from this viewpoint, and being able to see the supernatural work along with the physical, what's happening in our modern day and age, and just how it all fits together so perfectly. It's like a puzzle. And yet those that are not aware, they're just clueless and just another day of headlines that don't affect me. But I'm so glad that you have this message so that you can bring to those that are already aware, and then they can take it home to the friends, family, brothers and sisters in the Lord that are not quite yet aware of how this is all connected. So it sounds like a really exciting message.
Oh, thank you. I hope it will be.
Let's move to the second one now, the quantum computing and multiverse deception. That sounds fascinating and way over my head. Break that down for me.
Well, the good thing is, because a lot of people feel like that, and I once did too, the main thing here, it's not that these quantum things or these scientific things or these technological things, it's not that we're too stupid to understand it. It's not that we're not smart enough to get it and only these scientists and tech experts can understand that. The problem is they give off that perception because they almost speak a different language. So really, it's more about breaking down what they're actually saying and then just trying to translate it into language that people like you and me can understand. And I based a lot of my ministry the past 10 years on doing just that. So basically, quantum computing is just it's like a supercharged version of computing, whereas a normal computer, if it wants to do something, it's got to do something one at a time, and that can take a long time. So if it's trying to solve a problem, it's got to go through a bunch of different answers before it finds the right one at a time. Depending on how big the problem is, that could take millions of years. A quantum computer can look at all possible solutions at the same time and determine immediately, within seconds sometimes, which is the right one. So, an illustration that I give in the presentation is, so we live in a house. When you first walk into my house, on the right side, there's 3 light switches. One light switch controls the the front porch. The other one controls the living room, and then the other one is dead and it doesn't do anything. And for the life of me, I've lived here a year now, I can never remember which one does which. So if I were a classical computer, just a normal computer like what we're talking on right now, laptop or whatever, I would check each switch one at a time, see what it does to get the result that I want. But what I do personally, if I want the light on, even if it's just the fronts, I just turn them all on. I'll just turn every switch on, and then the light is on that I want on. Yeah, exactly. Now the difference is, when I do that, I still don't know which switch does which. All the lights are on, and that's fine. A quantum computer would be able to do that and also know which switch is the right switch. So it's a really advanced form of computing that absolutely will change the world in a lot of really almost well, I wouldn't say almost, in a lot of frightening ways, depending who gets their hands on it first, which it's going to be humans, so it's not going to be anybody good. But the reason this whole multiverse idea, the reason that this gets kind of glommed onto this is there are scientists out there saying, well, because a quantum computer can look at all possible solutions at the same time, what they're really doing is they're pulling an answer from another universe where that's the correct answer. So if people aren't familiar with the idea of a multiverse, it's instead of a universe, one verse, one, and we take that as the word of God, creating everything, but instead of like one universe, the idea is that there's many universes, and every time you make a decision, anytime anybody makes a decision, it creates a new universe where in the other universe the opposite decision was made, or a different decision. So there would be an almost infinite number of these things if it were true. It's totally not. There's a lot of reasons that this version of the multiverse cannot be true, but this is typical. It's called the many worlds interpretation. It's typically what you see in a lot of science fiction movies, especially like superhero movies, like Marvel movies, DC movies. A lot of them deal with this multiverse idea, and they have been for decades. But it's really not rooted in anything real. And even if it was, there's nothing to say that these quantum computers are actually pulling from these other universes. So that's why it's the multiverse deception. The reason the whole idea of the multiverse was originally embraced anyway is because we Christians, we have some very, very good reasons to believe that our universe was created by God. One of the strongest ones, and even atheists, even atheistic scientists will say that this is the strongest thing that the Christians have on their side, is what's called the fine-tuning argument. And it just basically says that our universe is so finely tuned for us and everything to be able to exist that the chances of that happening randomly are basically impossible. There's a much greater, higher chance that it was created by God, and even specifically the God of the Bible. And so scientists don't like that, of course. Yeah. So they come up with this. They love this idea of the multiverse, and most scientists embrace this. And they say, well, it's not, it looks like it's finely tuned, but it really just so happens that there's an infinite number of these universes. Many of them don't support life at all. Many of them, the mass of the atoms are a little too strong, so it just creates black holes all over the place and life can't exist. That's what most universes are like, and we just happen to be in the one where life can exist, so that's why we're here. There is absolutely no basis in scientific fact for the multiverse. It's riddled with all sorts of problems, because one of the funniest things about it is they use that to try to get away from the fine-tuning argument. But when you really break it down, Dr. Stephen Meyer has an excellent book on this called, I think, Return to the God Hypothesis or something like that. But in that, he shows how if there's a multiverse, you have an even greater fine-tuning argument problem, because first you need some sort of universe generating mechanism, something that's generating these universes. Why is it when somebody makes a choice or another choice that branches into another universe? Something's got to be generating that. Well, for that, and actually you would need two of them, because there's two separate sides of the argument that they would have to account for. You would need two, but let's say it was only one. Well, now you need a specific set of fine tuning for that universe generating mechanism. So that's a whole new set of fine tuning. Like, why does that work so well? And that's something outside of the multiverse. So there would only be one or possibly two of them. There wouldn't be multiple versions of these where, well, just those other generators don't work. This is the one that works. You can't get around it. So really, these scientists are just kind of kicking the can down the street, and they kind of ignore that stuff. So it's a really good argument for us as Christians, and a really terrible one for scientists. So it's really important to understand what the idea of the multiverse is, why it's so wrong, why it's basically anti-Christian. It's used as a weapon against biblical Christianity, and then how we as Christians can just explain that to just lay people and normal people that may not be familiar with this stuff. So in that presentation, I go through all of that information. I break it down real simply. I'm trying to do it fast here because I know we're limited on time. So, but I do promise everybody listening, this does not have to be over your head. I promise it is not that you're not smart enough to understand this. Now, maybe we can't really get into the intricate mathematics and all that, but the basic big ideas, God has us available for all of us who are interested in it. And if you're interested in it, you can get it. It just takes some time to kind of unlearn some things, relearn some other things, and just kind of learn what the language that these scientists use. And I would suggest checking out my books because I've spent 10 years going through and breaking down what these scientists are actually trying to say in terms that anybody can understand.
Well, and I can already tell just from when we started talking the light switch analogy, you have such a teacher's heart. You take these really big concepts and I can tell you have a gift and you love to just break them down in a way that, oh yeah, that's understandable. Like quantum computing, no, I don't understand that, but light switches, everybody has light switches. We can grasp those concepts. So you have to have a really good teacher to be able to break down and make things understandable for all of us. And so I think the Lord has given you that gift and you just excel in that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Of course, all glory goes to Jesus. I can't do anything without him, but that means a lot. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to just kind of harp on the fact that this really is like an important message because like quantum computing, all of these like things that are happening in technology right now, they are going over our heads, but that's even more reason for us as Christians to not just let it slip through our fingers and go, oh, well, that's not important. It doesn't, I'm not into technology. This doesn't affect me. Well, no, but it does because it will start impacting everyone's lives sooner or later. And so we need to have an understanding of what this is all doing. And then the bonus, the really important bonus of the multiverse theory and how it expounds on the fact that there is a basis for God that created us and this universe, and that it's not just all left up to chance. We as Christians need to be able to talk with all generations, but especially this younger generation about the technology aspect of it and be able to bring these facts, this information to the table. And, who knows if this one message might bring somebody from, the teens from the 20s to salvation because they can understand this stuff on a level that those of us who are older, we don't get it. We're just not involved. So I think this is going to be a really important and exciting, fascinating message. I cannot wait to see it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. And I just want to encourage people, don't be afraid of this stuff. Don't think it's over your head because it is of great benefit to atheistic scientists, for us Christians especially, to think this is over my head. I don't want to deal with it. I'm backing out. Because when we do that, we allow them to do whatever they want. And they have been doing that. Quantum computing is coming. It will absolutely change the world. And if people want to know how, they can check out my presentation. Live streaming is available. I think that's a great way to go about it. But it's going to be a big deal, and it's going to hit any day now. And we need to know what we need to do to protect ourselves, but also to just spread the gospel throughout the world. We need to have at least a basic understanding. So when people talk about, well, quantum computing is accessing the multiverse, where's your God in that? Then we can break it down and say, well, that's not actually happening. And that was only a couple of scientists that said that, where actually the majority of them don't even go that far. But the biggest thing is, like, don't be afraid to get into this stuff and really dig in, because if we remain complacent, we're allowing them to do whatever they want without any kind of recourse. And that's the problem with some of the conspiracy theories, especially around CERN online, is some of them are so ridiculous because not a lot of people really know how the LHC at CERN works. And that's fine. I don't blame anybody for that. But where I do start to say we need to not do this is when people invent these conspiracy theories that have no basis in reality, because that allows the scientists and even some of the occultists, the higher ups that are controlling some of this stuff, to say, look how ridiculous these Christians are. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't even understand the basics of this stuff. So we don't even need to pay attention to them. It gives us a really bad name. Whereas we could have a lot more influence if we knew at least the basics of what we're talking about. And if we just got engaged and spoke up more, denounced the conspiracy theories that are just too ridiculous to be true, but then the ones that are actually true and in our face, like the Shiva statue that they proudly put at the front of their building, stuff like that. We can point that stuff out and say, hey, what is this all about? And then hold their feet to the fire and actually have them explain it. So I think that that's really important to have that balance. So, I mean, more than anything else, I want to encourage Christians to do that. And especially because if we do that, that gives more validity to our word, to what we're saying. And then when we do share the gospel, that will hold more weight because we'll be more reputable, and it'll be a lot less easy for people to just pass us off as crazy lunatics.
Absolutely. In the last few minutes of this conversation, I just want to give you the platform and give you the opportunity to share something maybe that the Lord has been showing you lately, or something that you didn't get to touch on, just a free for all, anything you'd like to share with our audience.
Sure. Well, I think mainly, and everybody's feeling it, time is getting short. I don't think we have a lot, I'm not a date setter or anything, but every Christian that I've talked to, and I'll ask you the same thing, Karen. Have you been feeling like now more than any other time in your life? And if not, feel free to say no. But have you been feeling like just the time is getting close, something's about to happen? There's just this inner stirring that, and there's been times in my life where I've had it and didn't have it and had a little bit, but more like the past year, especially, like just the more time goes on, the more I'm feeling that. And every single Christian I've ever talked to has said that they feel the exact same way. I put up, I'm like in my YouTube videos, I know when I put up a video, I know about how many comments to expect. Well, in one of my videos, a random one that didn't even have anything to do with that, but I just said, hey, I just got a quick question for you guys. Do you just feel like, and if not, please say no, that's totally fine. I'm not trying to get a specific answer. I'm just looking for the truth. Do you have this inexplicable, like unexplainable feeling stirring that just something is about to happen? Something's coming, whether it's the rapture or whether it's the fulfillment of prophecy, just something that this time is incredibly important. And the longer we go, the more that feeling is increasing. And I got so many more comments than I'm used to getting. And every single one of them, hundreds, said that they're feeling the same thing. Not one said that they didn't. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're feeling that too, you're not alone. I think most Christians are probably feeling that. And if you're not, that's totally fine. I'm not saying that everybody's going to feel that way, but I think there's a stirring going on. I think God is waking people up, and I think now is the time. I have felt a sense of urgency more than I ever have in my entire life, and I have always been into prophecy since I was a little kid. I was reading the book of Revelation at 6 years old and stuff, so I've constantly been in this stuff and love it, but more than any other time in my life, I'm really feeling that. And I know a lot of other Christians are too. So I just want to encourage people, Christians out there, if you're feeling that, use it. God is giving you that for a reason. Use that urgency. Talk to your friend that you haven't wanted to be too pushy with the gospel. Talk to them. Have a conversation with that friend, with your neighbor. Talk to some people out in the store. Even if you're an introvert like me and you don't really talking, I don't really enjoy like talking to people like out in public at the store, strangers. I want to get my groceries and leave. So what I do is I do a podcast, and I can talk into a camera and put that out there. Anybody can do that. Get involved. Share comments on Facebook. I mean, any little thing to just get the gospel out there and tell people the time is now. The time is like, we are right there at the door. So that stirring that you have inside of you, God's giving you that for a reason. Use it. Pray to God. Follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit. However God wants you to use that, do it His way. But by all means, absolutely, I want to encourage people to use that. So thank you, Karen. I really appreciate you giving me the time.
Well, I think that's beautifully said. And that's one of the prayers I think that the Lord loves to answer. And sometimes the Holy Spirit does have that sense of urgency or that feeling in our hearts. And yet we don't even stop to think okay, well, I have this feeling. It's been here for a while. What do I do about it? And then, so I love that you gave us that next step. Ask the Lord. Hello. He knows even better than we do. And maybe there's a divine appointment or something that he wants to do in your life or in your community that he's just waiting for you to ask. So beautiful, beautiful. And I love your message topics. I think they're so timely, so important. I cannot wait to hear them. So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us. And thank you to the audience for joining us for this conversation. I hope it was enlightening and encouraging. And I would love for you to join us via live streaming. You can go to prophecywatchers.com, hear both of Josh's messages in their entirety. As they are presented over the weekend in Orlando. And you can also watch these messages and all the other messages as many times as you'd like. So it's an amazing deal. I encourage you to sign up if you are at all interested. This information is imperative. Go to prophecywatchers.com, scroll down and click on the live stream banner, and you can join us virtually. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you here, there, or in the air.